Welcome everybody to another great episode of Real Life Matters. And of course, I'm your host, DBoss. I've just been here and I've been giving over the last couple of months tips about laughing, how laughter is great for your health. So, everybody wants to be healthy and stuff. Laugh. If you don't have anybody to laugh with, then you could put something on like a sitcom. You could put something on to make you laugh, or just laugh. And if you want to stay in shape, this is my favorite one tip is to laugh, and it keeps your abs. So a lot of people didn't realize that keeps your abs in shape. And also laughter heals your body. And if you have high blood pressure or anything like that, it helps with that, relieving that also. So, I'm telling people to laugh. And also an important tip that I had is that a lot of people laugh to warm up their voice for their vocals. So those who are singing in the church choir or those who are doing entertainment in the entertainment industry, then they can do that. So they can laugh, warm up their vocal cords, and you will be relieved. So I encourage people of that all the time, because a lot of people, when they hear me laugh, they start to laugh. So that's why I've been doing it. But anyways, I'm going to just play one thing from one of our sponsors here, so that they can that you could see what they're having in Montreal, and they're doing something. So we'll be right back. I'm just going to play this.
Indie Roots Records presents The Dark Side of Venus. Thursday, May 11th, join us at La Sala Rosa at 4848 Boulevard Saint Laurent. Backed with live band, catch performances by Bella Forte, Prestige, Nene Knightley, and SLM. Hosted by CBC's own Duke Eatman. Music by DJ Lady Savage and special guest Drew Edgehill. Pre-sold tickets $20, $25 at the door, with proceeds in support of Ovarian Cancer Canada.
Well, we're back. So anybody that wants to go to that and attend that event, it's supported and sponsored by a good cause, ovarian cancer, which we're going to be talking about in the next couple of episodes. So people awareness about ovarian cancer and stuff like that. But anyways, I got a real special juicy guest here for you. And she's going to be talking about her father and who he was. He's a Black Canadian icon. And he was inducted into the 13 Halls of Fame and received 8 medals for the community service, including the Order of Canada. And also, she is an educational and a life achievement speaker who shares the compelling stories of her family who settled in Canada, circa in 1912. She's also the founder of their family-based and charitable foundation that has been promoted character education for the 3 decades and proudly served as an executive director for 17 years. So people, we're going to be really speaking to here a seasoned veteran that wrote a book along with her father. So with no other further ado, I introduce to you BERNICE Carnegie.
Hi there. You're making me sound pretty good, and I love the word seasoned. Yes.
Oh, that's good. Well, we had to tell you because you're a veteran and you're seasoned. So BERNICE, you guys are very well known. And for people that don't know you and know who you are, today they're going to find out exactly what's going on globally, internationally, because, of course, you're going to be seeing on Caravision here and Bell 5, channel 658. So please tell everybody, BERNICE, where you're from and your cultural background.
Well, I was born in Toronto, after the Second World War. There's the season part of it. But I do have a very interesting cultural background. My father's family came from Jamaica in 1912 when the
Woo!
Black population in Toronto was so small. It was hard for them to find other people to look like them. And my
Well,
mother's
I guess
family,
that's like out west because I'm from Saskatchewan. So I guess you couldn't, when my parents, you couldn't find anybody else. So, and plus a lot of people in that time, a lot of them were in Montreal, correct?
well, you know what? There were spatterings of our Black community all across Canada, especially in Nova Scotia, but we also had areas in Ontario where we had um, settlers that first came to Canada. Some of them crossed the border from the U.S. During the times of trying to get away from active slavery. And so my mother's family was from the United States, and my great grandfather on my mother's side was born into slavery in Litchfield, Kentucky.
Okay.
But my both sets of grandparents ended up in Toronto in 1912 and 1913. So we've seen a lot of history over that time.
Wow. So for you, I guess in Jamaica, and people, please at home, don't ask me what part of Jamaica. I know we all get mad. People say Jamaica. They always want to know what part of Jamaica the family's from, so that because Jamaica is a big place, right? So I don't know if do you know where what part of Jamaica your family's from?
Well, I believe Milk River was the original space of my grandfather. Um, but and my husband actually was from Jamaica as well. He came over in the wave of the 60s.
Oh,
And yeah, so I kept that connection for sure. And he was from Clarendon. So yeah, my grandfather did go back to retire in Jamaica, and had a very good life. But his story is very interesting, and
all
I
right. So tell us now about your grandfather, Herbert Carnegie.
Okay, so my grandfather is George Carnegie, and my father is the fifth child of George, and his name was Herb Carnegie. And
Okay.
my grandfather came over with a grade 4 education, and he became a janitor for 42 years. But he was one smart cookie. He bought property all over the city uh, and into Montreal and New York and Jamaica. And he would buy these properties and he would rent them out. And that's how he took care of my father and the siblings. So they
Wow.
had a house built in North York. And it was this big, looked like a big farmhouse before they had numbers on the streets. The houses were
Wow.
so far apart that you couldn't see the next neighbor. So there were ponds all around, and that's how my father, Herb Carnegie, ended up becoming a hockey enthusiast. He started skating on those ponds with his brother Ozzy, and that developed into what became his career, his first love, I would like to say.
A lot of Canadians love hockey. So,
Absolutely. And he tells us stories how they would sit by the radio and listen to the pod or the broadcasts and hear about some of his favorites in hockey. And he just aspired to want to be one of them, even though at that time he became an anomaly in hockey eventually because there weren't a lot of black hockey players at the time my father started his career in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
Okay. Well, for us here, a lot of blacks in hockey, because some people will say, "Oh, black people don't be skating and this and that," but that's not true because a lot of people do play hockey. And when you see maybe a couple of blacks that are or black Canadians or blacks anywhere that are playing hockey, you're like, "Wow, you're really focused in on." And I guess everybody's focused in because you're like, wow, you actually seeing people skate. You know what I mean? Like,
You know what? Of course, being raised in Canada, the big deal was to have a pair of skates and it was to get out there on the ice. I mean, at the time that I was younger, women didn't play hockey.
mm,
So we didn't have that wonderful privilege. But my father really gravitated to it with his brother, and they had a wonderful career. My father played hockey for 17 years, and
wow.
that's how he supported our family. We eventually had a home built in the same block that his father built a home for him, and that house is still standing. My father bought the property from his father for $50.
What?
And that property is now worth millions of dollars. Millions.
Wow.
I think they would be kind of pulling their hair out and going like, how did we let that go? But of course you don't know that
Yeah,
until
you didn't know.
yeah, until much later. But yes, the house is still standing. And I have a feeling why the house has not been torn down like many of the other houses around it. Uh, we were a family known for doing things that were unusual. And one of the unusual things about that house is it had 3 walk-in closets. Well, everybody wants a walk-in closet now.
Oh, my God. That's a must have.
Most of the houses on that street didn't even have closets, or they were so small, But our house had 3 walk-in closets and many other closets as well. And so I think that's why they never tore the house down. They probably remodeled inside and whatnot, but it's still standing after, well, it's 77 years old.
Wow.
Hmm.
$50.
$50 for that property. So I was raised in a community that was just a carbon copy of my father's, and nothing much had changed after all of those years. Um, I was the only black student in my classes. My father was the only black student in his classes. So, it's interesting how you can stay in a community and it kind of keeps its character and remains the same. But it was a beautiful upbringing in North York, but very different from what you would experience in some of our warmer countries. It was cold, and there was a lot of snow. It seems that there was a lot more snow back then than there is even now.
Well, everything was back there was drastic. So, the weather. But did you play
Absolutely.
hockey too?
Um, I never played hockey, but I have been the fortunate family member to have had at least 11 people in our family who were very engrossed in hockey. So
Oh, okay.
I was the daughter of a hockey player, the niece of a hockey player, the mother of 2 hockey players,
Oh my gosh.
the aunt of a hockey player, the grandmother of hockey players.
Well, I would figure that your father would have put you guys on the ice, should block the goals or something.
Well, you know what? He put us on the ice for sure. We all knew how to skate, but girls just didn't play hockey back then. Back
Yeah.
then. So what's really wonderful now is the circle of life has come all the way around. And just in the last year, I made history by becoming a part of the racialized ownership of a women's professional hockey team, the
You see?
Toronto Six. So after all these years, hockey has circled back into my life.
Well,
And
it was all, you were all engrossed in it, but the thing is now, now it came back right at you. That's why I had asked you. I said, "Did you play hockey?"
well, no, I didn't, but I love it. And our team just won the Isabel Cup. The Toronto Six won the Isabel Cup, which is the comparable to the Stanley Cup for men. And had some very happy young women in Arizona when that happened. Back I think it was April that was the situation, and I was part of all of that, and got to hold the cup up in the air and hug all those girls. And
Was it heavy? The cup?
I'm sorry,
Was the cup heavy?
the cup was very heavy. I
Oh
did
my
not hold it over my head by myself. I had a little help with that because yes, it's one huge cup. One of
Wow.
the other things that has happened is that I started a charitable organization. This is my second charity. It was called the Carnegie Initiative for Acceptance and Inclusion in Hockey. We all know that there are many social justice issues happening,
Yes.
and we are trying to do our best to make a difference. And so my father, back in 1955, way back then,
Mm,
started the first hockey school in Canada, called it
wow.
Future Aces.
Okay.
I love the name because it's a living name. Future, always striving, aces to be the best that you can be.
Mm-hmm.
And he had decided that it was important to help these young kids not just learn the skills of hockey, but also learn values in life. Because as a hockey player, he wasn't always treated with respect. There was racism afoot, as there still is.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that happened that shouldn't have. And so when he started his hockey school back in 1955, he wanted those young boys to have a sense of good citizenship so that they could do things that he wasn't able to do at the time. Because back then, they didn't have, when he played hockey, they didn't have agents and they didn't have places to go to complain about situations. You were kind of on your own. And so it was amazing that my father had such a wonderful career, but still had to deal with the challenges of the time that were not quite as open as can be now. And we're
So,
still
what kind
working
of
towards
challenges
that.
did he, so what kind of challenges as racial challenges did he face? Did he get to play a lot, or did they not let him play, or they sat him on the bench, or what did he challenge?
Well, he didn't sit on the bench. He was an extremely um, talented player, and
Mm-hmm.
he was voted most valuable player in 1947,
Mm-hmm.
1948, and 1949. So where
Okay.
does the racism come in? Well, it comes in the fact that even though he was declared the best player, other white players, and because he was the only black one at the time there, but other players were brought up into the highest level in the NHL, and he was left behind. So, what does systemic racism look like back then? I'll tell you. He was always in the top 10 in points and scoring. And you know how athletes are very competitive. and they do keep records on them of how well they do. So he tells a story in his book, A Fly in a Pail of Milk, the Herb Carnegie story, where he was in contention to have the highest number of points that season.
Right.
And the other person that was contending with him ended up being in the hospital. And what did they do? They continued to give him points while he was in the hospital. And my father ended up not being the winner that year because they cheated. They cheated him out of that season's recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And the way my father put it is, everybody knew. The players knew, the coaches knew, the whole system knew, but nobody said anything or did anything to support him. And he was in a position where he was one person, and maybe his job would have been at stake if he had made a big fuss about it. And that's how he supported our family. So he chose to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else chose to be quiet. This feeling of not standing up for others is definitely at foot in this particular story. And my father certainly, after all those years, felt it, because he knew that he couldn't change it at the time. But
Right.
In the end, when he writes about it in his book, he said he didn't have the backbone. He had a wishbone. He didn't have the backbone.
A backbone's different from a wishbone. You know what I mean? And but I guess he didn't want to rock the boat and be kicked out. And you could understand,
You're exactly right with that comment. He didn't want to upset the apple cart, as they say. There's so many phrases we can use for this.
I'm telling you.
It's hurtful.
Yeah.
It's hurtful because
it's against your pride and what you believe, your integrity, because he can't really stand up for his integrity, because if he stood up for what he know and what he believed in and was supposed to be fair, they would have kicked him off.
That's what he thought. And so, you know what? He stayed silent. He continued to be the wonderful father that he was, and continued to provide a wonderful lifestyle for us. But I feel saddened when I think about the conversations I had with him and about some of the interviews. He had many, many interviews. And in one of them, he actually broke down and cried, because after all those years, the hurt doesn't go away. It sometimes gets more internalized than you're willing to admit. And that's what happened to him as he got older. He started internalizing some of these things that were definitely wrong,
right,
and hurtful.
All right. So you wrote the book along with your father. So you wrote your book. Do you have a copy to show?
Well, here's how that happened. My father wrote his autobiography back in the late 1990s.
Okay.
And it was out there, for a while. But in 2019, the 100th anniversary of my father's birth, we launched the second book, in which I got to write part 2. So we're going from the 1990s to 2019, and I got to tell stories about my father that, of course, he had died by then. He died in 2012. So I got to share stories about our family and about my father that other people hadn't heard before. So we made it part 2 of the book. It's the same book, same title, different cover, different pictures in it, but it my portion of the book is called Lessons Passed On from Father to Daughter. So I have to admit that I stand on the shoulders of my dad, and I am proud to say it. He was a wonderful role model. He did things in his life, and so many of them, that it almost boggles your mind about how accomplished he was. So you mentioned a few things, but it started with his community work with the hockey school, and then the value system, the Future Aces Creed, the future, always striving aces to be the very best you can be. He wrote a philosophy to go with that. And the philosophy was designed to help him be a better person and be a better citizen.
Okay.
And when he introduced it to those young boys, he was hoping that they would take those values and live the values in their lives so that we could get rid of racism. But what happened with the creed is it jumped from hockey into the education system. Amazing, for sure. And my father and I ended up speaking to 20,000 students a year for several decades. More than 100,000 students annually benefited from the values because we would go into schools and we would start initiatives. And initially it was just him. And then I started going with him, and I'm going, oh my gosh, Dad, you're doing some good stuff here. This stuff works. I should get involved in this. And then the next thing you know, we started a charity called the Herbert Carnegie Future Aces Foundation. And we started bringing in other people, educators and people from the community who wanted to help and make a difference. So hundreds of people joined that movement and helped us share the message in schools and in organizations and all over. And then the Ministry of Education said, this is really good stuff, and made us one of the top 3 character development initiatives in the province of Ontario.
Wow.
And we ended up going to schools in Thunder Bay and Peterborough and Hamilton and all the little towns in between. But we did start in the Toronto area where we both were raised. So it was amazing. And then because he was doing that, 50 years of working with kids and sharing good stories and helping them build up their self-esteem and helping them become young leaders and helping them accept who they were so that they could better accept other people and unify with other people in a kinder and more caring way, all kinds of things started to happen. He started receiving awards. So he received 8 medals for community service, including the Order of Canada, the highest civilian medal. He's been inducted into 14 Halls of Fame, most recently the Hockey Hall of Fame. Oh, that was exciting. That was truly exciting. After 60 years, they finally go, oh, Herb Carnegie really did make a contribution, My father was an amazing golfer, too. He won 24 golf championships and two national titles.
Oh, he did golfing, too.
Golfing. He was an amazing businessman. He was the first Black man to be hired by a major financial institution. It was the Investors Group. And from the first year, he started as an advisor. 23 years in a row, he reached millionaire status, which was a benchmark in their company of production figures.
Wow.
He was the first advisor to ever do it. Now, of course, they blow the statistics right off the mark, but he was the first advisor to do $1 million in business for 23 years straight. And they have an award that they give out in his name every year still. They started in 2003, and they still give that award out to to an advisor or a number of advisors who are doing so well at the job, but also giving back to their communities.
Wow.
So if you haven't seen how handsome my father is, you got to go in Google and look him up, because he's just as handsome in a police uniform. York Region Police made him honorary chief of police for their
What?
police force. Yes. It's so crazy. They said, you know what? He's a role model. He's a role model. We want our police officers to emulate the values that Herb Carnegie put out there: attitude, cooperation, example, and service. You know, it's so amazing. So, and this is going to blow you away.
Okay.
He's actually a real life comic book character in 2 special issues of Spider-Man.
Wow.
They use his name, Herb Carnegie. He's in there as a caricature, and he's working with Spider-Man to, save the world, so to speak.
Wow. Well, do you have
So
a
do you
copy
want,
to
do you
show
want to know
everybody?
more? Do you want to know more?
We want to
Please
see. Do
do.
you have a copy of the book so we can
I
show
have,
everyone?
of course. The book is out there. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from
Okay.
Indigo. You can get it. You can order it from any bookstore.
Okay.
A Fly in a Pail of Milk, the Herb Carnegie story. My father was the fly in a pail of milk in Ontario. Basically, it was a white province with this black man, and there were many other black people
Yeah.
in the province, but we were so spread apart that
You can't see. Also, they say in Ontario, you can't see everybody unless you come around a caravan or something.
well, yes, Caravan is huge, of
That's
course.
the only you want to see people you haven't seen. Well, go to there.
Well, one of the other places that you can get to see my father is he has a he has an arena named after him in North York, and we've made that into a mini museum. So it
Okay.
tells his story. There are three display cabinets with his story in it, and they're in the lobby. There are 17-foot banners that share his story. It's really lovely. And then there is a school named after my dad, the Herbert Carnegie Public School in
Is that in North
Vaughan.
York?
That's in Vaughan. That's in
Oh,
Vaughan,
Vaughn.
in York Region.
Okay.
And I was just at the school a few days ago, and some of the kids had done a mural of my dad on the wall. It was
Oh my
lovely. Yeah, it was so wonderful. Now that school um, came to being in 2008, and I have the privilege of going to their graduations and honoring some students each year um, in remembrance of my dad. So I get this wonderful role to play. And I'm all choked up about it already. You know, I get this
God.
wonderful role to play where I get to carry on my father's story, and 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 just internalize how amazing a dad he was, kind, loving. Um, I I marvel at my mom and dad. You know, they couldn't stand beside each other without touching. Or he had his arm around her waist, or he was rubbing her hand, or rubbing the back of her head, or rubbing her feet while they watched TV. Uh, he was a very kind person, and
Mhm.
all he wanted to do was make this world a better place.
So, do you have other siblings that participated in the book, or is it just you?
I'm the only one that participated in the book. I was the sibling who worked with my father for 30 years,
Okay.
and my other brother, he lived in the U.S. His
Okay.
name is Dr. Dale Carnegie, which is also another famous name out there.
Okay.
Um, and my father eventually became Dr. Carnegie too, because York University gave him an honorary Doctor of Laws degree. So we had two doctors in the family, two Dr. Carnegies. It was kind of cute. Well, we played with that a little bit. So yes, the the accolades are huge, well deserved though, because my father really did try to internalize the creed that he wrote for those young people.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to live up to it. You know, he wasn't perfect. I'm not going to say my dad was perfect, but you know what? He was a perfect father for me.
Okay. Well, he did a lot of things in his journey, and a lot of things that are true, and a lot of things that's written down in the history books, and a lot of things that's to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame, to have a school, to museum. He has so much things, a book, that's extraordinary. Like, he did everything that he did while he was here, and he must be looking down from heaven and saying, wow, people are talking about me. You know what I mean?
You know what my daughter said at the book launch when we relaunched his book with my portion in it. She said, "Who gets to talk about somebody have a birthday party 100 years later? You know, when the person isn't there." And yeah, that's the best we can hope for, that people continue to remember us
Okay.
for our best selves.
Right.
And that's how I feel about my dad. I do remember the younger years when I would stand on his feet and we would dance around the room. And I do remember sitting in front of the TV and watching I Love Lucy and the Ed Sullivan Show. And he would be rubbing the back of our heads because I had two sisters, and it seemed like my father's hands were always going, rubbing our necks, rubbing our heads as we watched TV, and just totally enjoying the family unit.
Yes.
So it was good.
So what more can we expect from you in the future? Are you working on
Well,
something
I
else?
think
You're
one
not
of
that
the things
working on your own book.
I think one of the things is that the new organization, the Carnegie Initiative
Mm-hmm.
for Acceptance and Inclusion in Hockey, is making its entry, and people are seeing that the Carnegie name continues to bring value to the community.
Wow.
And we are working hard to bring people together in the hockey community so that they know that there are others out there that are working just as hard as they are. The end result for a lot of people is, let us make this more inclusive. Let us make hockey friendlier. Let us invite people in so that they can enjoy this wonderful sport that teaches leadership and teaches teamwork. All those things that my father took from the game and brought into his off ice life. So I'm very involved in that. I am part of the Canadian division, co-founder with Bryant McBride, who had this
Okay.
big vision of wanting to make sure that my father's story continued just as I do. And we're working with some really great people. Our board, you have to go into carnegieinitiative.com and see who some of those board members are who are helping us to carry on the vision of making sure that people do the right thing. And it doesn't, we've taken a sport to help us with it, but
Mm-hmm.
doing the right thing doesn't just have to be about sports. It's about life. We
Yes.
want people to be doing the right thing for the right reason in life itself, and to come together and to say, you know what? Everybody should have opportunities. Everybody is welcome.
And, and
Everybody.
also you encourage a lot of, not just blacks, but everybody, other races, to get involved in those things that, like the hockey, the golf, the things that they don't really see a lot of us well, they see in tennis is good, and all those things like that. Get involved, be a change, because look what your father did. You know what I mean? He stood out and he fought for what he believed in.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it more perfectly. He and it was a fight. It was a fight. You don't like to use the word fight when you're doing the right thing, but it does require that we're committed, that we're persistent, that we stay focused, and that we help others along the way. And
But
even though
it's also important for people to know that, not everybody has to go play basketball. You could be a businessman, because that's what your father did. He was an athlete. He was, he went in the schools. He was a role model. He did so many things. So, it's a big role model for other people. Just don't get involved in, go fighting people and all this other stuff. Look and see what is happening, so you could change your outlook. And he came at a time where people weren't even doing that, and he saw the vision. I'm gonna go play hockey. I'm gonna buy a property. I'm gonna do this.
well, I have to hand it to my dad and the other two black gentlemen that were his sidekicks in the what became a historical all black line in semi pro hockey. And that was my Uncle Ozzie and Manny McIntyre, the three of them. And I kind of smile at some of the titles in the articles because I have thousands of articles and tapes, hours of tapes on their lives. And some of those articles read title, The Brown Bombers, title, The Dark Destroyers, title, The Ink Spots, title, The Dusky Raiders. And so, you know what? These are titles they might not use now because they might be more sensitive to it. But
yeah,
I don't think my father and my Uncle Ozzie and Manny actually saw them as detrimental at the time. They were kind of exploding their talent into print, right? But yeah, they were very special, and yeah, sometimes somebody, well, we know somebody has to be first. Somebody has to be first. And just like my namesake, I'm named after Bernice Isabel Carnegie. She was the first Black Canadian registered nurse.
Wow.
And I carry her name, and of course, I carry the family name Carnegie. I couldn't be prouder of that.
Oh, wow. Well, I encourage everybody out there to go and get the book, about about the life of Herbert, your father, your late father, Herbert Carnegie. And, get it, and you'll learn so much. And not just the mature people get it. The younger people can learn so much from this. So if people want to get involved in your organization and stuff like that, where would they have to go to they just write out, or just go to the website, or where?
I think the best place to start is in the website. If you want to get to me directly, I have my own family website with many family stories on it, not just my father's, because our family, having come so early in the 1900s, have some very interesting journeys there. So please come and visit BerniceCarnegie.com and hear more stories. I will be adding more stories to that site as we go through the next couple of months. And so you don't have to read it all from a book, but sure, I'd love you to get the book. It has some great stories. Hey, my little 1 second ad.
Okay, well, are there any shout outs that you want to give to anybody? Bernice?
Well, I really do have to shout out to Bryant McBride, who got me started in this area. And there is a documentary coming out in a couple of weeks called Beyond Their Years. You want to be watching for that. It part of it features my father and an American baseball player, Buck O'Neill.
Okay.
And a shout out to my children, Vaughn, Brooke, and Corey, who have been just amazing as I've taken my journey, especially now that I'm seasoned.
Now you like that word, right?
I do. My children have been very supportive of everything that I've done, and I couldn't be happier to be their mom and know that they are great human beings in their own right. So, and then of course I have my grandchildren. What? If I didn't mention Kyla, who's over in the UK getting her master's degree in physiotherapy. I'm so proud of her. And I have two younger ones that are on their way up, Jacob and Kira. Just little ones right now, but I have great expectation. And we should all have great expectation for each other. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about our history. And please come and visit those websites. Visit Carnegie Initiative as well.com. Visit the Toronto Six.
Wow, here we go, people. The Six, the Toronto Six. There you go.
Yeah, you want to be inspired as a woman? You go to that one.
Well, I thank you, Bernice, for telling us about this rich history and how your family is involved in these histories for decades, and it's still continuing on and it's going on. So obviously, I'm going to have to invite you to come back again when you get your other thing going. And I hope here our crowd and everybody at Real Life Matters, this is a real matter, and this is something that Bernice Carnegie and her father and all her family has created. So this is facts, real facts. This is not factual or inventing it, fictional. No, this is facts. So I encourage everybody to go and purchase the book on our father. And, and if you have any questions that you want to reach out to her, I encourage everybody to reach out. You see how she talked to us here? She told us about everything. And that's probably not even clipping over, an iceberg, because it's so deep and in depth, how the family roots, and find out about, so, a lot of people say, oh, we don't know our history. We don't know what's in it. Hello, we're talking to somebody today that knows about the history, and her family is in the Canadian Black history. And not just for Black people, but history is history. Because sometimes we get overlooked, but this time it's not being overlooked. We're seeing it here. So I do want to thank again Bernice for coming and sharing her journey, speaking on behalf of her ancestors and her people. It was totally interesting, and I was really, it was just, I got to go look up and do my research, because some things I didn't even learn. I learned a lot today. So,
well, all you do is just type Herb Carnegie into Google, and stuff will come up. So, this is wonderful that you share such amazing stories, because, yeah, we are part of real life.
Yes. All right. So I do want to thank you, Bernice, and for sharing your journey again. And I do want to thank the viewers for watching tonight, along with the Carnegie Heritage. That's what I'm calling. And here with seasoned Bernice. So, I just had to throw that in again. So anyways, so good night, everybody, and bye for now.
Take care. Thank you so much.